All right, call to order at 7:02. Let's see. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we have a couple approvals of the agenda. May I get a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. First on the agenda is the approval of the open session minutes from September 9th, 2019. Can I get a motion for that?
To approve the minutes from September 9th, 2019. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is student comments.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for having me here tonight. And here are the school committee comments for September 23rd, 2019. This Friday, we had about 50 guests from the National Defense University visit Nipmuc for the day. The group is made up of top-ranking military officers from countries around the world. They're selected by their own countries to come to the National Defense University so they can study international relations and get to know American culture. The NDU comes each year in order to learn about American schools. After they met with Mr. Clemens and Mrs. Moran for a briefing on American education, they were matched up with students and spent the day shadowing Nipmuc students, including having lunch in the cafeteria. Actually, about that, they got to go to second lunch as opposed to third lunch, which was that was something else, especially when you're in the middle of math class and all of a sudden, bam, half the students aren't there. But I mean, you really can't complain about it. It's a great experience. Next talking point is the food for thought lunches and lead learner workshops. Last week, Nipmuc held its first lead learner workshop of the year. These are the leadership meetings that are open to all students and teachers. This week, we're holding our first food for thought lunch of the year. Over the course of the past 2 years, more than 400 students and 50 educators have participated in these events, which generate conversation, feedback, and ideas about our culture, programs, and future. Homecoming weekend is coming up, and I'm sure that we're all pretty excited about that. I know I am. Homecoming takes place this weekend, and we're getting ready for homecoming with Spirit Week. Today was American Monday, Tuesday is Pajama Day, Wednesday is Weird Sock Day, Thursday is Boston Sports Day, and Friday is Nipmuc Spirit Day. There's a pep rally Friday afternoon for all of our sports teams that are playing at home over the course of the weekend. On Friday night, there will be a pasta dinner free of charge for all students, beginning at 6 p.m. in the cafeteria. On Saturday, the homecoming dance will take place from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. in the Nipmuc gym. And that concludes the student report. Again, thanks for having me.
Very good, very good. So, do we have a number of sports playing on Friday?
We have a great deal of sports. I know that we have a football game. I believe we have a soccer game, no? So we have a soccer game as well as field hockey. I think we also have.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
And volleyball too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have a really large range of sports that are playing this weekend.
That's
so
very cool.
yeah, it'll definitely be something to check out.
Good.
Mr. Schmidt definitely stacks it.
Excellent.
Definitely.
So next up on the agenda is, thank you, by the way.
Oh,
Great to have you back.
oh, thank you.
And I'm so proud that during the summer months you really worked on that camera presence.
Thank you.
Nice job, Owen.
Next on the agenda, community comments. Do I have any community comments for this evening? No? Okay, moving on. Superintendent's comments.
Okay, good evening. So first off, just a bunch of different updates. I know at the last school committee meeting I presented on the proposed, what is the title of it? Leading Edge Charter School. That was a proposal that was submitted to DESE during the summer months, and I talked about a potential threat that it could be, particularly with regard to our funding. And as I noted, we were still super early in the process. As I forwarded to you last week, we received word on Wednesday that the commissioner is not even considering it for a final application. So for all intents and purposes, it's completely stopped in the process. So for now, we don't have to be concerned about a potential drain out of resources. So good news for Mendon-Upton, I'm pleased to report. Second piece is something that we discussed a little bit during the last meeting when we were going over the district action plans, but we're really, really excited that this year the concept that we've done over the last 4.5 years at NITMA with regards to the 21st Century Learning Conferences is going to be spread to all 4 schools district-wide. So we're referring to them as Inspired Learning Days, and we have 2 tentative dates, December 11th and April 15th. And we're in the process now of planning and doing some of the brainstorming to ensure that in all 4 buildings we will be pursuing topics of interest for our students, but also making those connections within the community. So you will very shortly see in all 4 buildings all calls to our parents and to community members to come in and facilitate different sessions for our students. So super, super exciting news. Kind of in the same vein, I'd like to kind of give a hat tip to our NIPMA co-principals, John Clements and Mary Ann Moran. I included in your packet a grant that they submitted to MUF for learning adventures, pre-K through 12, which is kind of the same type of vision of our Inspired Learning Days, except kind of something a little bit more extended, but really kind of connecting it across multiple grade levels. So the vision is having a team of approximately 24 students and 6 to 8 educators across the levels, kind of plan something that is community-based, that stretches across different content areas and has careful alignment with the 6 Portrait of a Learner competencies. So that planning process has begun, and we are in the process of kind of doing some planning of rolling out of how it will look as far as the application process for educators that would be involved with it and also students involved with it. So again, super exciting news. Kind of on that same lines of good news and things that we're excited about, we got great news last week that John Hansen, who is one of our art teachers at the middle school, has been named the 2020 Massachusetts Art Educators Association Middle Level Art Educator of the Year. So I think this is a tremendous honor from John's professional organization in being recognized as an exemplary educator who demonstrates outstanding support to students, advocacy for the arts, and engagement with the community. So he will be recognized at the state conference on November 9th. And I think it really kind of speaks to the quality of our entire art program in the district. If you keep in mind that Alice Gentili won this award, I believe it was 6 or 7 years ago, and actually she's been recognized as a national middle level art educator of the year. So kudos to John and kudos to the program. And then last but not least, I'll damp down the good news and the excitement. I included in your packet a couple different handouts, a fact sheet, and also kind of a technical summary of the bill. I'm sure you're all cognizant. Also last Wednesday, the legislature's Joint Committee on Education released something known as the Student Opportunity Act, which is the long-awaited Foundation Budget Review Commission bill to address the FBRC recommendations, which realize have now been pending for 4 years. It generally is being very much praised because keep in mind, it envisions over a 7-year span adding about $1.4 billion to Chapter 70 funding. However, keep in mind, as we discussed last spring and the different competing ideas that were out there, the largest amount of new aid will be going to districts where there's a high percentage of low-income students and a high percentage of English language learners. I'm sure we will be getting more of the formal analyses of the bill, and I'm sure people like Mass Budget will be doing breakdowns by district to see different projections of what we could be looking at for FY21 and beyond. But you know, I want to underscore, and I know we've had this discussion before, that we can't really anticipate seeing a lot of new state funding from this. And as we've kind of consistently talked about, particularly during the budget process, really the solution to some of our challenges, I think, are going to remain at the local level. That, you know, that 70% piece of funding will continue to come from our two communities. I do think some things are noteworthy in it. One, it will be establishing the minimum aid. It'll go up from the whopping $20 per student to $30 per student each fiscal year. I think one of the things that we talked about just last meeting is the whole issue of charter school funding and charter school reimbursement. It is saying within a 3-year span, they will follow through on the promise of 100% reimbursement in the first year, 50% reimbursement in the second year, and then 25% years 3 through 5. And probably the most significant piece that could be a positive driver is establishing a schedule for reimbursement of out-of-district transportation for special education students, for our students who are in out-of-district placement. So according to this bill, it's a 5-year proposal, and starting in FY21, this coming fiscal year, 25% of the cost will be reimbursed, and then over the span of 4 years, I'm sorry, it's 4 years, not 5 years, it would increase by 25% every year to the point of FY24 being 100% reimbursement. So that is very good news, seeing that for our, at present time, for out-of-district transportation, we're spending approximately $1 million. So that is positive news for all school districts. And then kind of thinking forward, one piece, I think we've had the discussion about the really the pressing needs facility-wide across the district, where we're kind of on borrowed time for this building with regard to a new roof. We know the multitude of facility issues that we have at Misco Hill Middle School. The bill would also lift the cap on allocation for MSBA funding from $600 million to $750 million in school building projects. So that's positive news as well. So I am hearing from leadership of the Superintendent's Association that the legislature is very much looking to fast track this, and would love to have this wrapped up by the end of October. So that's extremely quick, so that this would be going into effect for FY21. Okay? And that's my report.
So I have a question. I have
Sure.
a question about that last one. So will we have an idea about that at the end of October when they pass it? So we'll have better.
Absolutely. I would say probably before, probably by the end of this week. I know from at least the Superintendent's Association and also the School Committee Association, you will see various analyses done. And I'm sure Noah Berger and the folks at Mass Budget will also do the same analysis.
Okay.
And by fast track, they'll probably, if you've read any of the press accounts, they're starting in the Senate for the approval process and then backing down to the House. If you recall, when, not this past spring, but the spring before, when the process failed. It failed in the House. It didn't fail in the Senate. So you will probably see, starting possibly tomorrow, Wednesday, the amendment process, which will be relatively quick, probably a week maximum, and then go to the full Senate for approval. It already has been approved unanimously by the Senate Ways and Means Committee.
Okay, so that has the potential of having an impact on our budget for next year?
For FY21.
Yeah, okay.
But again, very, very modestly, because if you recall, the Chapter 70 monies and the changes in the Chapter 70 formula are for economically disadvantaged. And across the district, we're right around 10%. It's for English language learners. Across the district, we have a little under 30 students. So it's not anything that is a great mover.
Except for the special education.
Which is very
transportation.
positive,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, good, understood.
Does this touch like the regional transportation issue at all?
Does
Is that
not touch it at all.
something that's potentially addressed by this Rural Schools Commission?
No, the Rural Schools Commission is something that was probably more looking at, do they actually create some variation of Chapter 70 formula for rural schools? And I think one of the issues is we are technically not defined as a rural school. We're more defined as a suburban school. Unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Next on the agenda is the administrator's comments.
Dr. Cohen.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Marie.
I have some gifts for you. I'm going to be talking about. 1, 2, 3. So thanks for the opportunity to give you an update about how we've started off the school year in regard to our PD, mentoring, and some of the curriculum work that we've begun. So I'm going to give you a highlight about our opening PD day as well as our PD day that will be coming up in October, and also outline our mentoring and induction programming that we have set for the year, and let you know about some of the curricular areas that we're piloting this year. First, I have to thank our PD committee. We have grown our PD committee. We just had a bunch of people jump on this year. Some people even as of today have reached out to say great trying. So we welcome everyone on the PD committee, and it's been long-standing that we've had the committee for a number of years. And so what we do is we meet together, we design, we come up with a vision, we meet with the PD, and then what our plans are for the year, and we begin to work collaboratively together. So this is the year, the committee that we have so far set up from all the different schools this year. So with the August 26th PD Day, we had one major theme that was about empowering all learners to thrive, and our big focus on that day was about staff wellness, self-care, mindfulness, and having balance and recognizing the fact that this is a difficult profession for all of us. And so a big focus on that day was empowering our own learners of our staff to thrive. In addition, we also knew we had to balance with Power School training, and so we wanted to make sure we had a nice balance between the fact that we got to go through that training for our Power School preparations, but also would walk away with some other skills that would balance out the day. So that was our goal. So overall, we had a positive overall rating for the day. And we also, you may have seen some emails out there, but we've rolled out a new mandated training modules that's linked in with our Teach Point system and their Safe Schools modules. It's very different from what staff have done in the past, so there have been some hiccups that we've been working through on how to use the system. It is longer, but it's also been beneficial because we're actually going through more formalized training than we've had in the past. The Department of Ed every year will send out a list of the types of trainings that we have to provide annually to all of our staff. So some of them have to do with bullying, sexual harassment, cyberbullying. So we've gone through all of those, and we're extending it through our next PD day so our staff can have enough time to work through those modules. So that was another piece of what we did on the day as well. One of the questions we asked the staff prior to the opening day was, what can you do to create conditions where our learners thrive? So I wanted to share with you some of the responses that our teachers had, and you can see this is like a Wordle, so word cloud, when you have people saying the same word more often, it will be bigger. So you can see the focus in the middle there is having empathy, love, encourage, support, challenging, connecting, care, relationships. So we talked about how with our staff, you didn't have, we weren't throwing MCAS up there, we weren't talking about AP tests, we weren't talking about assessments, we were talking about the relationships that we want to build with our students. So I wanted to share that with you. And a lot of what we talked about and worked on was how to establish a great start to the school year with our students. A couple of quotes. We had an opening session just about staff wellness that I facilitated in the first hour, and I wanted to share just a couple of the activities that we did so you got a sense of what people liked. Everyone received this folder, and this was when you receive notes. Many teachers over the years will receive notes from parents or students, and usually people will have a place where they keep those notes. So we gave everyone that to make sure that they had something that they could hold on to, notes that they received or gratitude in the folder, and you can open it up if you want. There are some cards in there where we ask them to write a note of gratitude to someone else, one of their colleagues, and maybe save one later on in the year. We talked about how excited we are at the beginning of the year, but how it can be difficult sometimes when we hit March and we're in the middle of winter, so they had to write a letter to themselves, a note to themselves that we can reflect upon when we hit that March and winter. We talked about reframing, which is what the right-hand example is, of how, yes, we have to do PowerSchool training. There's some mandated trainings that we have to do, but trying to reframe our language around we get to. So we talked, that really has resonated. People are still talking about that. And in there, you'll see that there is a rock in there that says inspire. So our district intention with our strategic plan is to inspire. So that's our district intention, but we had other rocks and asked the teachers and staff to reflect upon what other intentions they might have for the year, to set intentions. And we also did a breath, and that was kind of a lead into a lot of the mindfulness work that we're doing and aligns with our social emotional learning that we've been focused a lot on the last couple of years. So it was a really nice start to the year. So I wanted to share that with you and give you your own rock in there as well, and gratitude cards. So we're already, it's surprising, but we're already in there for our planning for October 11th. And per the contract, one of the full PD days is a teacher-directed professional development day. And a few years back when we started it, we typically had it on the March day. Last year, we swapped it and tried out the October day. And overwhelming teachers said that was a perfect time of year to be able to collaborate together, to work on preparations. They felt that it had more impact to do it at the beginning of the year. What it means is there's a lot that we're getting planned out right as we start the school year. And so already we have a lot of requests that have come in for restraint training. We have some Medicaid training updates, some assessment training. So you can see the whole list here. We have some of our members are offering workshops. So I see Diane Borgatti here. She's going to be presenting a training that our new teachers requested related to frontline system for special ed. We also have history teachers or math teachers, and they came together and said, can you please find someone to come in and do a presentation on a particular resource. So you have, this is just the initial range. Right now, all of the proposals are coming in, and then we'll be communicating that out. They sign up, and it's a mixture of collaborative, external. So many teachers go externally to music institutes at Foxborough, or to observe teachers that might be in, or counselors and other school systems. And we're also, you'll see the mental health first aid training. We ran this summer, and this is with a partnership through the Shrewsbury Family Youth Services, and it's free right now because they have a grant. And so we booked them, and we're offering it out to our Blackstone Valley
friends and colleagues in the area as well to send some of their teachers over. So I attended it this summer, it was excellent. And then you have your first aid certification, mental health. So it's a nice range, and the pictures there are some of our committee members this last week, some of the brainstorming around our goals for the year. And just a reminder, I know we mentioned this at the end of last year, but we are continuing with the Excel network again this year, and we had 3 choices of types of cohorts we wanted to be a part of, and we determined as a team that we want to be working on embedding SEL in the classroom. And we've already started some work in embedding SEL practices in our classrooms, but we thought this would be a great opportunity for us to have more teachers involved and to bring back some of those strategies that we can start applying. Part of this, you can see the team has grown. We can only send 10 to each meeting, so we rotate through different teachers and administrators to make sure we have representatives from all the buildings. And our goals this year in our strategic plan, you'll see that we have, and I know they'll talk about it, the establishment of SEL school-wide committees. And so with those SEL committees, some of the members are going to go back from the Excel network, bring back the strategies they learned, and then bring it over to their school-wide committees and share those practices. And we also have teachers who are volunteering to pilot some of the strategies too, which is a piece of being in this network. You may have seen this in some of the notices I've sent out, but over the summer we had a number of book studies, and we always try to align our book studies with some of the themes and work that we're doing in districts to support our work. And currently we're finishing up Mindfulness for Teachers. That went August through September, and we're just finishing that up. That was an excellent book. Mindful by Design was in July. Project-based teaching, I believe that was July or August. And onward, we provided that book for all of our teachers this year, and that is about cultivating emotional resilience in educators. And we're doing work, this is a year-long book study, and so in my weekly memos and updates I send out, I'm pulling from some of these books of self-care practice, but also you'll see in the faculty meetings that they're going to be doing work. There's a workbook that goes along with it, and the leadership team is reading it as well, that we're going to have continued ongoing work with this. And what's nice about it, it's specific to educators, and there's a lot of strategies for what leaders can do and what educators can do in different areas, which where the hope is then once we're familiar with it, then it will transfer into the classroom when we're working with our students. With our mentoring new teacher induction, there haven't been any major changes from last year, but just to let you know some of the highlights of how we run this program. It's a pretty robust program. We have many new teachers this year, and all of them are assigned a one-to-one mentor. We brought in last year new teacher workshops that are after school, and so they're on various topics. Again, Diane presented to them recently, presenter extraordinaire over there, and she presented on the IEP process, which they really wanted to learn more about. We have parent engagement is one of the topics, managing minutia, lesson planning, assessment, so we have a number of workshops this year. We also, mentors will observe them, and they will observe mentors or other teachers throughout the year. We have one book study that we'll be doing with them, and we have one collaborative mentor-mentee meeting. So that's for our new teachers in their first year. For year 2 mentoring, that would be teachers that are here for their second year. And we have 3 professional learning days, and we're about in our 3rd year now of this, where we collaborate with Ashland and Milford, and we bring all of the teachers together who are in their second year. In the morning, they go out and do classroom observations. So we send them out whatever district we're in. So if they're a middle school teacher, they're out in middle school classrooms. And we try to match them up as best as we can with their content areas. We come back, we debrief. There's usually a topic we're looking for. So for example, student agency is one of them that we've done the last couple of years. We give them prompts. They go out, they look at it, come back, we debrief, and then we have a workshop in the afternoon where we give them a little bit more content. We also have some book studies that are through Google Classroom that we do cross-district, and it's gone really well the last couple of years. And in year 3 right now, that's with Milford and Mendon-Upton, and we just do 2 days one book study that looks a little different, but the format of the 2 days are kind of similar. And with our mentors, we have, mentors are trained every 5 years, and they have to go through a refresher, and we have mentor meetings, so we have the next one tomorrow. We have quarterly meetings with them where we work with them to support their work as mentors. For the curriculum update, on the right-hand side, I'm going to begin there. Last year, we had a health PE, a wellness curriculum review team that met monthly all year and did a review of their curriculum and programming. We also had a social studies group that met, and the reason why we had social studies last year is we have new state standards that have just been released. And our goal is to set up a time this fall to present those curriculum reviews, so maybe at an October meeting or November meeting, whatever seems to work in the schedule. I'll present, and we'll present to you the report, some highlights of the reviews, and from that will be some proposed action steps that they can work on. And the goal is to start having these reviews and rotating through every 5 years. And so you would do the full year of the self-study, and then you would start to work on some of those action steps, and then you would come back to it. This year, we have slated to work on ELA for curriculum review, also focus on reading in special ed, reading supports, and to look at art, because there are new standards coming out, or that just came out, some draft standards, and that's what we have slated. I'm still going to be coordinating with representatives from all the schools to see when we can do that, and we'll probably get that up and running at some point around October or towards the end of October. We are piloting some resources, just to let you know, in grades 6 and 7, we're piloting social studies resources from McGraw-Hill that are aligned to our Massachusetts standards. So we're trying those resources out. And in grades 1 and 3, we are piloting Reading Wonders. We've been using Reading Wonders 2014. There's already been one update that came out in 2017. The teachers really like Reading Wonders, so there wasn't this sense that we wanted to have a giant presentation review of all resources, but we wanted to try this out and pilot this out, but we will be looking at resources in general through our curriculum review. So we're piloting that in 2 grades. And we also have our new course of the grade 8 civics, and they have a resource that is matched to their new course. And that's because the frameworks have changed for social studies, and it used to be world history at the 8th grade, and now it is civics, and so they have a new resource. So just wanted to give you a heads up of some of the shifts that have been taking place. And there are many more taking place, but those are a couple of highlights we've been working on. And that's all I had for tonight. I welcome any questions. We're off and running.
Very good.
All right.
Any questions? Thank you, Maureen. Okay, next on the agenda is the updates from the subcommittees. Budget subcommittee is the real update. I guess I can give a little update on that. Sure. And hand it off to you. Sure. So we discussed as part of our subcommittee, budget subcommittee review program throughout this season, we're going through each individual aspect of the MERSD budget. This was focused on the special education portion. So we went over all the aspects, which are the costs and the structure of how we actually use the revenue that we get for that specific area of the budget. One aspect of this is that we are talking about roughly 25% of the budget here when we're talking about special ed. So with that, I'll hand it to you for
Sure.
any comment.
No, in your packet is a copy of the presentation that Dennis and Jay put together. I think what they did was an exemplary job because it was very concise, but kind of got to the heart of the matter of what are our major cost drivers, what's the vision of the program, and what are some of the critical needs moving forward. So I think they very aptly identified what the vision is and what our needs are and so on. I think it made a lot of sense, particularly for this one, to be our very first of this series of meetings. just like you identified, Sean, special education is approximately 25% of our budget. It is very much a significant expense. So, as I say in the background notes, we will continue these series of meetings. They are scheduled approximately every 3 weeks, and the next one will be Tuesday, October 8th at Clough at 7 p.m. to delve into student transportation, which is another large budget driver.
And just emphasize that these are all being set up special for this year, and we're being very focused about each area of the budget to be completely transparent and also to get as much information out about the decisions we make on budgeting within the school district. Any other questions? We had quite a few people there. We had participants there from CPAC. We also had a few people there from the town. There was also Mendon Finance Committee was represented, and we had Jay Byer, myself, and Lee, and we also had. Am I forgetting anyone? Oops. Oh, Upton FinCom was also represented.
Yeah.
So they're pretty much the town organizations were all represented there between both towns. All right, so moving on. New business, presentation of the 2019-2020 Misco Hill and Nipmuc school improvement plans.
So as we usually do at this meeting and the next meeting, right after you've approved the district action plans, we'd like to have a concise overview of what each school is thinking with regard to their school improvement plans. So tonight we will cover the middle school and the high school, and then the next meeting we'll cover both elementary schools. So we have our principals here. Unfortunately, Jen Mannion is super ill with the flu and is flat out, but we're in great hands with Paul Marshall. So Paul, take it away.
Thanks, folks. Yeah, absolutely. Let's speak about actually moving to this. I love this slide because it is an amazing shot of the rainbow.
When are we going to rip up the gym to get the gold?
Right, that would be great. Yeah, just in relation to Jen, she is incredibly sick, and she was told by her doctors that she cannot come anywhere near here until a fever breaks, and it took an army to keep her out of here. But get well, Jen. Hopefully you're feeling better. Just want to let you know that tonight we're presenting the plan in a draft form. This kind of came together with all of our work last year with our school advisory council, as well as crosswalking with the district improvement plan. And our work with the school advisory council was very powerful and inclusive. It's one of the things that when Jen came on board, we talked about how do we make our school advisory council something of a really a mover in our building. And I know that we had these conversations going way back, and we're really thankful of all the work that everybody did, because it really has been the driving force for our school. It really has. Again, we're going to be getting that work back together again in October. So we feel we're presenting tonight is a continuation of the work that we started last year, aligns with the district improvement, and will be vetted by our school advisory council when they reconvene at the end of October. So it's kind of continuation of work and moving forward. So in reviewing our goals from last year, we had a lot of challenges, and like the rainbow, you don't experience the rainbow without the storm. So I think that we really dug into the work. People really challenged each other. At the end of the year, we did a red, green, and yellow process of taking a look at where we felt we were in relation to meeting our goals from last year. Happy to say that most of the things were either the yellow or the green. A lot of things were completed. We started it and we finished it. There are certain things that, frankly, to be upfront and open, we didn't start. So some of those things will be carried over. I think that an improvement plan needs to be a dynamic kind of process. So the expectation that we're going to start it and finish everything, I don't think that that's realistic. So some of those things will be going over to this year as well. Some of the highlights of the accomplishments that we felt that came from this plan, one is the Inspired Learning Center, which opened up this summertime, partnering with Project Lead the Way, as well as summer work with renowned educators like Aristotle and Pam Moran, spearheaded by Dave Quinn, really helped not only the community really get a sense of what our center is going to be, but also helped us to really brand it and really think about what it is that we wanted it to be. So it was a real good jump off. Officer Cinco coming with us last year was a great addition to our whole school community. Taking the lead in student safety committee and also training our staff in dynamic alternatives to lockdowns really, I think, helped us to really rethink how do we keep ourselves safe, how do we keep our community safe, how do we be proactive in some really challenging and interesting times. So Officer Cinco has had a great influence on our community. And of course, our tremendous relationship with the community through the Week Here MISCO program, which has just been absolutely insane. Over 800 hours this summer of volunteer work to help transform our space. And it's just been an absolutely tremendous experience. This is a picture of our staff for a couple of days wearing our Week Here MISCO shirts. And you can see by people's faces, it's just it's a different sense in our school. People just are genuinely, you really zoom in on it, people are smiling, and it's a genuine kind of outcome that we're seeing. So thank you for all the community really stepping up. It's really great when you see it happening. A lot of times people say, "Oh, sure, I'm more than happy to help out." But people really stpped up, and it's going to continue moving forward. So we really look forward to working with them. So getting right into our 3 strategic objectives that we've presented for tonight. The first one is supporting social and emotional learning. We started the work looking at our school through the lens of PBIS, which is the Positive Behavioral Intervention Systems last year. And that work included surveying and dialoguing with students, teachers, parents, school advisory council members, and we came up with norms for our school and our school community. And they basically came under 7 different areas, those being different domains: the classroom, hallways, cafeteria, bathroom, locker rooms, playground outside, bus, and assemblies. And we adopted the We-Are squared E grades, and that stands for the R period, R squared E, stands for achievement, respect, responsibility, and empathy. The different areas that we came up with was, well, how are we expecting ourselves to act in all these particular areas? And rather than imposing, you will do, and if you don't, this is what's going to happen, we really talked to kids about, well, what's expected in these particular areas? How should you be acting? And then really started the dialogue on, well, how do we talk to students when they are doing it, and how do we praise them, and how do we talk to them when they are not, and how do we help them to bring them back into what they agree to, almost like a social contract. One of the most powerful things we did in MISCO, believe it or not, was to take a piece of red electric tape and run it down the middle of the hallway. And we had talked to kids about, if you're moving through the building, see if I can find it, because we experienced it, I think we all did, it was amazing. We talked about the kids moving from the right and going to the right. As soon as that red stripe goes down, everybody just moved to the right. And it was a crazy simple thing. And sometimes in our world, it's crazy simple things that have the biggest impact on our kids and our lives. So it's really about us talking about, well, how are we going to act and how are we going to do what we're going to be doing, and really holding each other accountable for it. So we'll develop data collection systems for teams to analyze, well, how are we doing this? Is this actually giving us the impact that we're looking for? Taking a look at things like physical data, time in classroom, our kids are actually achieving a higher rate, higher levels, identifying patterns and trends that will determine the need for direct instruction of students and professional development for staff. So really, it's not just about the document, it's about how do we build the document, what do we do with it, how do we take that information back, and how do we help it to move our school. We've been working with staff to develop vocabulary to use with conversations that are consistent from teacher to teacher, so it's the same message, and that's who's looking at. I remember in my house, if it was Friday night and it was time to go home, I knew that if my father was up, there was one conversation, and my mother was up, there was a totally different conversation. So we want to make sure as kids are hearing the same message from all of us, so that it can be consistent. And also, it's easier for them to understand exactly what's expected of them. It's not like cheating in front of this person when they're supposed to do and when they're supposed to act. We've begun our student handbook revision committee, consisting of teachers and students who will be recruiting parents over the next couple of nights at our upcoming 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 open house. 5 and 6 is tomorrow night, and 7 and 8 is Wednesday night. What we're looking for is really a critical eye of going through our handbook. I know that Jen and I, it's been frustrating, and it's been frustrating for teachers too. That thing reads like a laundry list of the worst person ever existed in the world. So we really want to have it to be more user-friendly and talk about really what we're doing at schools is teaching kids through all of their experiences. And all of those experiences include how am I acting within my community, and how do you teach students to be able to be a more active and a more positive influence not only in the school community, but again, as we're talking about this is really preparing kids for the larger world as we're existing to be contributing to the society. So that handbook and that revision committee is hopefully going through from the top to bottom. Obviously, there's certain things that you guys have created in relation to policies. Our kids are actually critically taking a look at some of those things, so they might be coming back and talking to you about some of the things that you guys have already approved too. So we're looking forward to that dialogue with the students. Our second strategic objective is engaging the community as partners in learning. So we're looking to establish a baseline for communication so all stakeholders know where to look while allowing teacher autonomy and adding layers of communication. So it's a challenge because we are in the age of communication, but there are so many platforms and so many different ways to do that. But I think sometimes parents, students, teachers, faculty don't know where to look for and how to do it in a succinct manner. So we'll look to address how we will coordinate communication so we're supporting the social and emotional wellness of our students. And if we align with portrait of learner competencies, communication would cross academic and extracurricular so we don't overschedule students and send mixed messages about our core values and beliefs about learning. So it's really critical that we nail the whole communication. As an example, in this picture above, you see a student who's using Seesaw to be able to communicate with their parents, their teachers. So the way this works is the student will put something on here, sends it to the teacher then will be able to, if you think of a seesaw, the student then gives up that, and the teacher then will be able to respond to that form. The other thing is that it creates this digital portfolio that will be there forever, and parents also can tap into it. So if parents say, gee, what are you learning here? They can tap into it and say, well, here's a conversation I had with my teacher. So this is one example. So I think one of the things we were talking about with teacher autonomy is we want them to be able to play with these different things, to be able to come up with, is this actually getting us what we're looking for? And then as it grows and turns into best practice, that's when we'll start to adopt it throughout the school. But we're still going to be seeing people kind of playing with things. So if everybody's looking for Seesaw, you won't find it in every classroom, but you're going to find different things. We're trying to find, what's going to be able to meet the students, but also meet the parents. Next one. Last is aligning practices to the diversity portrait of the learner competencies. Communication of the POL visually throughout the building, including the vision board, which if you haven't been in this lately, as you walk in the building, to the left-hand side is a huge whiteboard. It won't be white for a long time. That's one of the things where, in cooperation with the here in MISCO, we're creating a vision board. And part of the vision board will be messaging the portrait of the learner in kind of a scattered word fashion, but it's really going to be getting all the different things that we're looking for. And not only in that particular vision, but all sorts of other ways around the school. Design and implement the inspired learning days that directly align with the POL competencies. I want to publicly thank both principals, Mary and Maureen and Chuck Clemens, for their work over the number of years for doing this. It's great to have this snowplow just to follow the backlights, and they've done an amazing job over the last few years. So rather than recreate the wheel, really looking for them and thanking them for doing all the work that they've done at Mendon-Upton, and we're really excited about doing that work to scale, not only in MISCO, but also the elementary school. So again, thank you guys for your hard work. Encourage to review your curriculum at all levels and focus for alignment with explicit teaching and assessment of PLL competencies. So again, we're challenging teachers to take a look at where in the curriculum is the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, where they can push in and really start digging into this. So it's not just something that sits off to the side. It's embedded in everyday teaching and everyday experiences at our school. Create curriculum and opportunities to expand the use of Inspired Intervention Center to include students at all grades and families. Right now, we've adopted this as a 5th and 6th grade initiative, and it's sitting in our technology opportunities, but we have also 3 fellows, who we're calling them, which are teacher ambassadors, who are really going to be working with the center to encourage them to come down to the center when it's not being used as a classroom to really start to work on it. So it shouldn't be the standalone experience. We're trying to integrate it and embed it in everything we're doing at the school. And that's kind of it. So just wanted to thank you. Our teachers don't sleep on the job, but we are feeling very comfortable in our space. So again, I wanted to thank the people who do labor on this. Sorry about that. Which would be Jen Mannion, Rita Manser, Kelly Abbott, Robert Cotton, Suzanne Blaylock, Wendy Morris, and Paul Schwab, who really put this together. And last but not least, thank you guys for listening to us. That's all I have. Any questions?
So for your action plan for the coming year.
Yep.
So it would be nice to see all of the places where you might have had like red line items.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have that document, so if the committee would like to see where we feel we are,
Yeah,
I'd be more than happy to get that for you.
Yeah, that'd be excellent.
Definitely. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Now, Nipmuc?
Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure how this podium got here, but since it's here. How is everybody? Thank you for the chance to present our school improvement plan. And it's good to follow Paul and hear about all the great stuff that's going on at MISCO. As Mr. Marshall said, these plans are dynamic, and in order to be dynamic, they shouldn't be standalone. One year you do one thing, the next year you do something different. And so as we get started, we wanted to walk you through a little bit of the context of where we've been that's brought us to this point. You got to be careful about speaking in superlatives, and I feel like each year I'm coming in and speaking in superlatives, but I'm going to do it again. I don't feel like there's ever been a better time to be a Nipmuc student, and we're excited about the direction that we're headed, and we're going to share some of that. So we're going to quickly ping pong through a recap here to give you an idea of where we've been and where we're going. So you start with the big picture stuff. Inspire, that was put together by that great group of community folks. Our beliefs about learning, also our definition of learning. So while we were going through the district strategic planning process, Nipmuc had a parallel process going on, and we saw awesome alignment between that. The idea of a call to action, which articulates the why are we doing this work, and why are we thinking about school a little bit differently, and then the portrait of the learner. All this was out there and provided what is a really strong compass point to move forward. But what we were focused on last year was talking about it, understanding that compass point, but then also making some tangible progress. And we're pretty excited about the progress we've made.
So another thing that we've talked about for a couple of years here at Nipmuc too is the idea of modern learning that's been driving a lot of work here. And when we talk about modern learning, we talk about student agency, deep inquiry, and then the connections to real work that matters. So when the strategic plan came into play and had that alignment between what we had been talking about in modern learning and the strategic plan, it was just kind of fuel to the fire to keep moving in the direction that we were moving. Some exciting things have happened over the course of the last 2 years, which have provided structures for us to continue with a couple things. Food for Thought lunches is an awesome way to continue in the student feedback loop, so we're continuing those again. We're entering our 3rd year of those, where twice a month we welcome students and teachers together to get feedback on the direction of the school. Our lead learner workshops, which are kind of flattening the leadership that any student and any teacher can come to. Again, so those structures are in place. We're entering our 3rd year with lead learner workshops to drive the work of the school. And this year we're adding lunch and learns, the idea that our students have so much that they should be teaching, so providing time for our students to teach our teachers and other students, which is pretty exciting.
Having those structures and platforms in place allows us to move and allows us to get all the voices in the school engaged in leading and exploring and trying new things. So one of the highlights of last year was that we were able to come up with a draft of the reflective tool for our portrait of a learner. So focused on I can statements, what students should be able to do. This was created in this room in a full day workshop with teachers, about 30 students, including 2 middle school students. Some graduates came back. It was a collaboration sort of across the Nipmuc community. And what we ended up with was a really powerful statement of what it means to be a global citizen, what it means to be an inspired innovator. And then beyond that, we talked about approaching these differently, not assessing them and slapping another label like exemplary, proficient, or needs improvement, but thinking in terms of reflection and thinking more aspirationally, where faculty members would be providing feedback based in the form of what if, and I wonder. So what if you did this to take your idea to the next level? Or I wonder if you would consider X, Y, or Z. So focusing on that growth mindset and not the sense
Decision to tie it into our 21st Century Learning Conferences as they existed. So our January date and our June date were both tied into each of the competencies. And our students had the opportunity to practice with the reflective tool. So we had a Google form where we pushed it out to all students. And then faculty members in their small group advisories were able to give some feedback. So we had the opportunity to do some piloting and looking forward to revisiting that tool this year and doing some work with that. And as Joe mentioned earlier, excited about the idea of expanding 21st Century Learning Conferences, which will now be Inspired Learning Days and will allow for collaboration K-12, which we're pretty excited about.
looking at the results of the 21st Century Learning Conferences and all the kids reflecting using that tool, we ran a blind process looking at those reflections through a Lead Learner workshop with students and teachers together, and we pulled out stories from students that went beyond traditional achievement that showed what the portrait of a learner looks like when it comes to life. So we ended up with, I think, 32 students who we highlighted as Portrait of the Learner Scholars, now Portrait of the Learner Scholars, really focusing on that part of the Inspire, the strategic plan that challenges us to come up with a new definition of success. We don't undervalue the AP scores, the SAT scores, the transcripts. That's all important, and they're door-opening achievements for our kids. We know that. But we also know there's a lot more to our kids than what's on their transcript. And what you see when you look at the Portrait of the Learner Scholars is that you've got kids who are bringing stories to life. Jaden, we just featured on the blog this past Friday. Jaden is an inspired filmmaker. I don't know if you've seen the feature yet, but you should check it out. What he can do with technology, he's taken on being a director, he's using amazing technology, and he's telling stories in a way that looks like, as he said in the feature, low-budget movies with a high-budget look. And it's completely impressive. Beyond that, Jaden also makes beats. So he gets his homework done, and then about 11 o'clock at night, he's on his computer, he's testing out new software, he's creating beats, he's putting them up on his SoundCloud for people to listen to, and he's putting them out for rappers to purchase and lay their vocal tracks over the beats that he's creating. If that doesn't get you excited about our kids, and if that's not an important part of their story, we're missing something. And there's a place for that in school. There's a place for us to incorporate that. Bryn is the next student that we featured of the 32 tonight. Bryn is a kid who has stepped up. She's always at a food for thought. She shows up at so many Lead Learner workshops. She's a student who's found her voice in leadership, and she capitalizes on those moments. In her Portrait of a Learner profile, she talks about being a third grader involved in a church fundraiser where they were getting supplies sent out to kids who were at the U.S.-Mexico border, and how that has sparked a real passion for her about helping people to understand Syrian refugees and support them. Brenna is a kid with an amazing future, and she's a top achiever. She's a great leader. She's as polite as you can be. But with just looking at her in traditional metrics, you miss this important piece of the passion. I love some of her numbers that tell her story too. 2017, year I attended the Boston Women's March. So like trying to find these moments in the kids' lives that tell a unique story of who they are. We had 32. We believe that we've got 636 kids in this story, kids in school have a story to tell.
Awesome. So the other piece that we've been working on, and this has been the last 6 years here at NITMUC, is the idea of model student learning and professional growth goals, which has helped to drive the practice of our teachers. So we have amazing teachers here who constantly step up. And these have been developed not all at once. They started with technology integration, actually, back when we adopted one-to-one in order to come together, find a way for teachers to collaborate, to do the work that's meaningful to them, tied into our school improvement plan and the strategic plan, but work together. And over the course of the years, we have an average of, I would say, about 90% that adopt one of these goals over the course of the year, and we'll talk about the new one for this year. But this has been kind of a powerful piece of having everyone moving in the same direction here as well.
Beyond that, we worked to get to the departments. We spent a lot of time last year talking about our beliefs about learning, our definition of learning, which sounds dry, but we get excited about it. Meeting in small groups to help departments figure out what resonates with them about our guiding documents and where they can take it forward. So on our NITMUC Learn site, that's been primarily internal. You can see the protocols we did with each department and the different ideas that they come up with. What's really powerful is as they set their individual goals or focus area for this coming year, they're finding different aspects, whether it's interdisciplinary or connecting it to the real world, different aspects that align with who we are and what we believe, but really reflects the character, the interests, and the curiosities of the professionals in our school. So we come to the thank you slide, and I'm going to sort of take Paul's thank you and deflect it to our teachers. We've got amazing people. We're really fortunate we get to be sort of the ambassadors of the school, and we recognize that we're in front of people regularly talking about the school, but we don't want it to be confused about where this work is happening. It happens in the classrooms. It happens when you're getting ready for our 9th 21st Century Learning Conference. That's teachers saying, sure, I'll take kids to an Italian restaurant and teach them how to cook in an Italian kitchen. I'll make the contact with that professional. I'll figure out the transportation. I'll get them there. I'll take them on a hike into the woods with a park ranger and figure out the connections between environmental science and art and break down the walls. They're stepping up and getting it done and doing it in a way that is not just getting it done, but doing it in an awesome way. 90% of people taking on well the SMART goal, saying, I get that this is where we're going. How can I participate and figure things out? People showing up for lead learner workshops, which are not mandated meetings. They're extra meetings on a teacher schedule, which is already packed and booked, not only with school stuff, but with home and family stuff. It's people showing up, the stat of over 50 educators, I think, is low, who participated in Food for Thought lunches. They give up a lunch block to come and talk to our kids. We've had 60 people shadowing, allow kids to shadow them over the course of the past 2 years. This doesn't just happen everywhere. And we were on a podcast recently sharing the work of NITMUC with a national audience, and I talked about Lead Learner Workshop as a pretty simple idea. It's a simple idea. Get rid of your old school meeting and replace it with a meeting for everyone. And the moderator of the conversation came back and said, you call it simple, but it doesn't happen like that everywhere. And I want to reiterate that. This is a special thing. There are people show up that they're invested and that they're taking risks and chances with us, and we're excited and grateful for that.
So that was kind of looking back, which leads into the looking forward. Not that we stole it from Paul, but we're stealing from Paul tonight too. So this year is really focused on 3 things. One of those being the portrait of a learner and embedding our work into connecting it to that.
So when we talk about the 21st Century Learning Conferences, what we have there is a non-traditional, active, fun, different kind of learning experience that has real value and connects to the portrait of the learner. And what we have in that is a template that we think we can bring to other classes as well. We recognize the realities of school. We got to get kids to get good SAT scores. We got to get them the transcripts they need to get into college. But we also recognize that we have, as a community, articulated a pretty awesome aspirational vision for school. And that means that we need to start taking some action steps to make it a little more like that aspirational vision. And we think a bite-sized way to do that is through the concept of learning adventures. Think of the 21st Century Learning Conference sessions that are active and fun and non-traditional, and capture the spirit of that and bring it into the classroom. So that over the course of this year, some of the most important and significant and time-consuming work our teachers are taking on is that in each of their courses, they're creating a learning adventure. They're creating an experience in Algebra 1, in US 2, in Italian, in French, in PE, that allows them to take that idea of the 21st Century Learning Conference and connect it to the curriculum. So what we can do through this is we can create a series of experiences where kids are, as I had one teacher tell me today, she's excited for this because she's imagining in anatomy and physiology doing sort of a TV show House Come to Life, where we create an emergency room and kids are coming in and the doctors having to take their knowledge. That is going to feel real, it's going to be active, fun, it's going to be engaging, and it's going to take a lot of work to create, but it's a way to do the same thing that we were doing in the curriculum in a different way. The crime scene investigation is another one that we have, where we got mock crime scene happening in patterns of crime and justice. The forensics class does the organization, and they bring it to the AP US History class for the trial, where teachers are getting called and brought in on trial. There are a number of things that exist here already, but having a shared definition of what would make something a learning adventure is what's going to be powerful for us. And what we will be able to do even.
Sure, so we're excited about our next Lead Learner Workshop in October, where we're going to come together with our students and faculty members and really define learning adventures. But when we're thinking learning adventures, we know that they're going to be tied to our beliefs and definition of learning, connected to the portrait of a learner that's so important for our students, be non-traditional, like John talked about, interdisciplinary. So this idea that when we're creating these adventures, we're tying in multiple disciplines, because things outside of school don't happen in disciplines. Have them be fun and active, multi-age, so tying in multiple ages, connected to our community. There's so many great resources tied into our ideas of modern learning with agency, inquiry, and real work that matters. So this is our guiding premise for Learning Adventures, but we're really excited about that Lead Learner Workshop where we're going to dig in together. The other piece, we talked about a new student learning goal. This is the model goal this year that we put out to our teachers, and we're just starting our goal meetings with educators. So we're not sure how many are going to adopt the goal, but all teachers are participating in the creation of Learning Adventures. And this is really kind of guidelines and action steps that helps them work alongside their students to co-create these experiences, rather than saying to the teacher, we need you to create this, tapping into the students' creativity and interests and saying, here's the curriculum. If you look at this, where do you see opportunities for adventure? Where do you see opportunities to practice those portrait of a learner competencies? And then working with students to create something, get some feedback from teams of teachers and students, and iterate it some and get it to a point where we have this bank of learning adventures that kids get excited about.
And so think about it through the eyes of a freshman, incoming freshman coming into high school, and you've got this school term of portrait of the learner, and what does it mean for you? Well, we imagined being able to sit with that freshman and saying, you're going to be able to chart your own adventure. You're going to choose your own adventure of how you want to learn the competencies. And you're looking at all the courses you can take in your 4 years, and you're picking the adventures that match up with your interests, your curiosities. It's going to happen in your courses. It's going to happen during the Inspired Learning Days, and you're going to hopefully be able to create some of your own during the course of your 4 years. So by linking this into the program of studies, it's taking something that was a powerful 2 days of learning and incorporating it into our school day and our program of study. I think one of the themes that we hope you see in the work that we're organizing is tangible progress, where you can feel from 1 year to the next there's a clear step forward, whether it's the scholars from last year or the reflective tool from last year, to moving forward to this year, where now those things are going to become the building blocks that allows us to embed this into the spirit of innovation and the spirit of thrive into all of our courses. And we think it's going to be a nice tangible way to get our kids even more excited about coming to school.
So that's goal one, focus on portrait of a learner. There's two others. Second one focuses on social emotional learning and supporting all students. So some of the work that's happening there, Maureen already talked about, the continuation of the Excel network, having a building-based SEL team, which is something that we hadn't jumped on with yet. Others schools I know in district had started that work. As part of the work, to do a self-assessment as a faculty in terms of social emotional learning and sharing strategies at faculty meetings. As being part of the Excel network and sending teachers to these workshops, they're going to have the opportunity to learn practices and embed them in their classrooms. So our hope is that we can learn from each other through sharing of best practices. A relationship mapping activity which focuses on ensuring that every student at Nipmuc Regional has a connection with an adult in this building and figuring out ways to strategize for those that may not have as many as others. Our signs of suicide programming is going to continue with a refresher course for our juniors, and then as well we're going to have the incoming sophomores be a part of that programming. As Maureen said, the focus on self-care and mindfulness with our teachers with the onward book study. And then another portion, there's 2 action steps focused on co-teaching and data and coming up with some common definition and language around specially designed instruction to be ensure we have a common understanding of that and we're providing the supports for students.
Highlights from goal 3, which is focusing on, while we have the portrait of the learner, that's a big part of goal 1, there's a lot else that we have going on. So we wanted to take the next step and sort of closing the gap between what we believe and what we practice. So we have another set of collaborative learning opportunities. We put out a doc to our teachers each fall that has lead learners, shadow, lunch and learns, and those are filling up, and teachers are including those in their goals, so it's exciting to see that continuing. The last lead learner workshop, we began building our glossary of Nipmuc specific terms, our lexicon of learning, we're calling it, which is the list of things that are Nipmuc specific that not only help to communicate the story and the journey that we're on, but also help to reaffirm the values that's driving each of our work. So that's work is underway. Lunch and Learns, as Marianne mentioned a little bit earlier, sessions that will have similar food for thought, but we think are going to be a little less, are going to be more conducive for drop-ins, where kids are going to be featuring the things that they do so well. Supporting departmental priorities. Each of the departments, as I mentioned last year, came up with their priorities for this year that align with our beliefs about learning and who we want to be as a school. So providing them with the support to do that. Norm setting, particularly in the area of technology, taking that next step and teaching digital citizenship and helping our kids to understand what it means to be a tech user. So that's not only working productively in the classroom environment, but setting some norms that will help them move into an employment setting. The school counseling curriculum, looking now for opportunities to not treat it as a pullout, separate from all the other work we're doing, but embed it in courses and embed it in classes. Pilot internships, we'll be looking to set up internships for groups of upperclassmen run by our Career Community and Innovation Coordinator, Leanne Ramsey. She's been doing a lot of research and focusing in on other schools. Maynard has an interesting program, and Sutton High School has been very generous to us in sharing their ideas. She's culled the best of their programs and is looking to pilot something for this coming year. And then the continuation of Legacy, which is the 4th iteration of a course that started a little while ago. I love that it changes every year. I love that it's a little bit different. Last year, this was what we called IQ, Interest, Inquiry, and Innovations. We had a lot of feedback about what worked and what we could adjust. Changes were made to the schedule, changes were made in order to make it more flexible, and I think also to put kids' interests and curiosities at the front of it. We have 2 sections this year, and we're really excited about this model that we think is going to continue to grow and be a great option for kids moving forward.
So those are our 3 goals. We also wanted to share kind of unofficially one of our goals this year too is about communication and increasing our communication. I know there's a new website and a new platform for communicating, but we have also increased our social media presence on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So we've been putting out regular posts almost daily on all 3 of those platforms. Just to get information out, get more information out to the community, share the things that are happening here at Nipmuc with the community, everything from details about the DECA Club Activity Fair schedule, so students are receiving that, and that's critically important to them, to recaps of our Lead Learner workshop, sharing with our community the work that we're doing here in order to bring the district and our school's vision to life. You'll see some dinner time conversations that we plan to post every Monday. So just to be present, get people thinking, tapping into their curiosities as well. So we've been marketing this quite a bit. We're at Nipmuc Regional for all of our platforms, so there's consistency there so people are able to find us rather quickly. The other piece that we've done this year.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so we also switched over to a new platform for our newsletter. Previously, we had news and information published on the blog every 2 weeks. It was good, but we're also hearing from people that when they look for information, they go to their feed. And so we wanted something that was a little bit more dynamic. So we're publishing out every 2 weeks a newsletter on top of the 3 platforms and the blog. Newsletter's been working pretty well. What's nice about it for us is we're able to see some traffic. So I think the number was 560, so that was the last edition, got 560 views. So that's good for us to see that the word is getting out. We're hitting people from, hopefully, that wherever they want to find information, they can get it. The blog is inclusive. Everything that goes out essentially ends up on the blog, oftentimes with more paragraphs than people are going to read, and we know that, but the information's there if they want it, and it's hopefully very transparent for them. And then social media, quick hitters, you're able to see it fast, link out if you want to find some more information. And it's not just the info, but as Marianne said, like things like the dinner time conversations, where today we posted about, it's homecoming, picture month, and back to school night. Parents, you want to talk to your kids about stories from your high school or not, or share your high school picture. Last week it was about what can we learn from Rob Gronkowski's decision to walk away from football and self-care, and hopefully just getting people talking about some of the themes and the interests that we have going on here at school, so that there's that natural connection from what happens at Nipmuc every day to what happens around dinner table.
That's it. Questions?
So all of those links, the tags are all lined up with Nipmuc Regional?
Yes.
I
Instagram,
have
Twitter.
at least a dozen tags that
Right. That was one of the changes we made, was to get rid of all the different handles and go just with at Nipmuc Regional. So the SMORE is at Nipmuc Regional, Twitter, Facebook.
So especially like the sports are definitely spread all over the place. I think there's a few. There's a few. You gotta search around for them, I guess. But yeah, this is a really cool plan. I was wondering about the departmental priorities. That sounds very interesting. Is there any way you could share those with us?
Sure. We can pull up my words for a second. So part of this came through taking one of the protocols that we worked on in strategic planning, the Back to the Future protocol, if you remember doing that. And we did this with each department. Department chairs led it, where they said, okay, let's look ahead to 2019, let's look ahead to 2024. What does it look like? When you look back at 2019, what are you surprised we were still doing? So that's a nice prompt to get people in the headspace. In addition to that, throughout the course of the year, we did a what if protocol early in the year, where it's a nice way departments work together in a circle and what if, and you challenge some of the assumptions we make about school. And then the other piece that we did was we took the beliefs about learning, our definition of learning, which is about 30 sentences, which we're going to be communicating out in a really cool way, short way. And we took them out individual sentences and gave every teacher the opportunity to pick the one that resonated most with them, tell the story that connects to your personal life and why it resonates, and then think, okay, if this is what we believe, this is something we should probably stop doing, and this is something we should do more of. And so through the course of those meetings, you come up with amazing ideas. And when we got back to talk about the departmental priorities, it was look at those three things, synthesize them, and where do you want to go? And we did it with a protocol called the Game of 35. You want to talk about that quickly?
Sure. So departments essentially took all of their work from the year, right? That what if stuff, big pie in the sky thinking, and then connected to the definition of learning and beliefs, because that was critically important. Then that back to the future, where do I want to be? And then boiled it all the way down to multiple goals. Everyone in the department wrote what they felt that they wanted their goal to be. And so they came, 7 or 8 members per department, they came up with those. And then in a game of 35, where you match up the 2 ideas and then we assign a point value to them and then switch up the ideas, 2 more people join them. So you go through a protocol where they're matching ideas, saying, is this more of a priority or is this one more of a priority? They can assign 7 points, 0 points, they can go 3, 4. We don't let them split. We can't do 3.5, 3.5. We'd end it right where we started. And choosing the priorities that were most important to them, and then helping them go through, if this is our priority as a department, what are the action steps that fall under that? So our departments right now are at the process where they're finalizing those, and as soon as they're finalized, we're happy to share those out with you.
Yeah, just a quick broad brush overview of them. English department was interested in the creation of a writing center. So connecting students to each other, the power of student-to-student teaching. I don't know if that was the one they landed on in the end, but I remember that conversation.
Sure.
Science is very interested in climate change and connecting so many of the courses to this discussion of global climate change and how can they bring that in with connections to the real world.
Math is interested in exploring their curriculum and finding the space for project-based learning and connecting it to the real world. So that's a struggle that we've been talking about with high school math for a while, but they're interested in exploring that. Science is, history is really interested in some interdisciplinary work. So finding the natural connections between our history curriculum and science or math or English, because we know they exist, and planning some interdisciplinary units and or lessons over the course of the year.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what's cool about it too is you can point in every single one of those things, you can point to something in our strategic plan and in our definition of learning that is the driver of it, that's the compass point, and it's all different, and it's reflective of where they're at and where they want to go. I think some departments may use it as a guide for common planning, maybe some will use it as creation of the teacher goals, but when we talk about supporting it, it's being smart about our resources, getting them the time they need to work on it, coming and meeting and offering guidance, and just hopefully seeing where it's going to go. There's a quote that we talk about sometimes, that change happens really slowly till it doesn't. And I think we're at the cusp of things really starting to progress very, very quickly as people take the ideas and run them.
Cool.
Any other questions?
It's great. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, so on to new business. I'm sorry, we have to go to approve them. All right, so go to approve. So may I get a motion to approve the Misco Hill and Nipmuc school improvement plans?
I move that we approve the Misco Hill and Nipmuc Regional High School school improvement plans for 2019-2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes unanimously. All right, so next is Next is the approval of the Nipmuc field trip, France for April 2021.
Okay, so you have in your packet all of the materials from a provider that we use extensively, Explorica, and also the background material, and as far as the itinerary for the trip, which will be April 14th through April 23rd of not this coming spring, but the following spring, 2021. And aptly, I know that you guys usually approve these trips well in advance, and this is no case. This is the same exact case. So tonight we've got two outstanding teachers, Madame Lemaire, and we'll say Mademoiselle Reardon, bonsoir. And I don't know if you guys want to just give a brief overview.
Sure. All right, so for those who don't know me, I teach Italian, not French. So we have our wonderful French teacher here. And she's been wanting to do a trip, and I'm the one who leads the trips kind of to everywhere else. So I've been helping her and getting her feet wet in traveling with students. So we decided, or she decided, on the Paris trip with the Côte d'Azur. That's what it's short. All right, and then a little bit of Italia, which makes me happy. Cinque Terre, to get a little bit of northern Italy in there. And she's been here, this is her 4th year. So she's gone through a whole grade of students that are very excited to get to Paris and to get to France. And so that's why we decided.
No, I think that covers it. Yeah, they're really eager to get over and practice what they've learned and see all the sites. So, yeah.
April vacation. That's the price. That will be the price till the end of October. That's with the $200 off. After that, it'll only go up to the 36, and then it stays there for everybody else. They don't sign up by then. It is very early. I know we're talking about 2021, but I like to get here so everyone gets the best price they can. And if they choose the monthly payments, they're small and people can do that. Yeah. But yeah, I've used Explorica. This will be my 11th student trip here. So I've used Explorica for all of them. They're a great company, very helpful. So haven't decided on changing or anything.
Well, should we approve? That's the question.
Yeah, that'd be a great question.
So anybody want to make a motion to approve the trip? Has everybody read the materials first of all? Okay, good. So can I get a motion to approve the trip?
I move that we approve the Nipmuc field trip to France, April 2021.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, triple
Thank you so
approved.
much.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. On to old business. Do you have any old business?
There is none, at least on my end.
Correspondence, anyone? Correspondence? None? Okay. So any other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of post of meeting? I don't have anything. So the future agenda items. Up on October 7th is the superintendent's annual evaluation. So with that, I think we should get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn. 8:25.
I put it as.